Alrighty, kia ora tātou, mai haramai. Welcome everybody to what is our emergency council meeting. So we'll go through, we've got an apology from Councillor Jackson. I'll move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Shannon, put the motion. All those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. I'll just check with the team online. You guys can all hear me okay. Oh, that's Andrew AS, isn't it? Yep, no, perfect. Okay, so we've got Councillor Scott, Councillor Pye, Councillor Oliver, and we've got Andrew who's looking after the Southern Water stuff online as well, so we can pull him in if and when is required. So, no public forum. Any conflicts of interest? Shouldn't be. No. Move forward to the report. 4.1, and so this has come about as an emergency meeting. We've been requested effectively to sort of move forward and give indication to the Southern Water team on some direction, which will help them as far as their planning as well. So I think we'll just use the first part of the meeting sort of more in an informal workshop sense, just so we can get lots of questions out of the way. So I might should I pass you, Mr. Traynor, in the first instance?
So thanks everyone for coming to this emergency meeting. So this was brought about by conversations with Southern that are looking for some direction from us so as they can get on with their planning. It's also probably from the DIA's point of view, this is a really, really important decision that we're making, and they're fully supporting it. I thought we might start by talking about the assessment of significance, and then we can go into the subject matter at hand. So I'll hand over to Stephen to do that, and then he'll come back to me and I can walk you through where we're at.
You can give us context for the importance of that. You let the others know that you've been talking to DIA and they, yeah.
The DIA, they have a view that Timaru is the connector for all of these different schemes, and they believe that if we were to say yes to Southern, then it actually allows others to actually join it that have previously decided otherwise, and that gives you a lot bigger mass for this particular entity. That's where they see it, and that's both north and south.
So from a significance and engagement perspective, this still does rate high because it is looking at a change in status for what is a strategic asset for the council. However, we would say that as long as you are confident as a council that the feedback you received through the last consultation, which was undertaken under the Water Services Preliminary Arrangements Act, as long as you feel that confident that that informs your decision and it's relevant to your decision, and that's the decision that you can make, the consultation is still valid for that. So it's really down to you as a council to decide, as part of the recommendations, that that you think that this consultation is valid and will inform you and allow you to make an informed decision on the day. Probably going out for reconsultation wouldn't enable you to make this decision today, as it would take you past the period that the Water Services Delivery Plan could be delivered within. But in summary, what we put in front of the community was for the council to join a joint WSCCO. We did make some suggestions as to councils that we could partner with at the time, but there are some things that would be pretty consistent with the consultation, such as our belief that a joint WSCCO will provide a lower price pathway than going it alone or keeping it in-house. So there are key aspects of it that are similar in that regard. It's just the actual makeup of the joint WSCCO would be different. That's probably it for me. So
on that point, would you like us to make a decision on that level of significance around consultation and our thinking before we move forward, or are you happy to further discussion? Councillor Piddington.
I can be persuaded either way, but I do have concerns that in our previous discussions we threw this particular group, or said we weren't interested in joining them, therefore we named the other groups. So it may come as a surprise to many people. We're now looking at Gore, Central Otago and further south, because we talk geography, Canterbury, all those sorts of things. So I do have a level of concern that we haven't consulted properly on this, but acknowledging we've made a decision that I'm personally comfortable with, and I just think we're kind of being rushed into this.
Yeah, look, in that, as far as the rushing, Councillor Piddington, I think that's one of the options, and that will come out in the broader discussion on what are our steps as far as decision-making. It's around maintaining our current delivery of water services and stepping through that, and we can have that broader discussion. Yes, Councillor Pye, thank you.
Thank you. I just wondered if Mr. Doran could please remind us how many people submitted on our previous consultation out of how many ratepayers we have, please.
So from a unit perspective, we have 29,000 rate-paying units. It was around... Yeah, it was about 150 submitters, I think, in total. So, I mean, from a percentage-wise, you could say that if it was a... Yeah, if it was a survey, it would be statistically okay, but it's down to you guys to decide whether you feel that is a representative sample of the community that you can trust their feedback on. But that is the basis of a lot of the consultation we do, that it's not just purely a numbers game, it is about getting what the feeling of the community is in this regard.
Councillor Pye, did you want to make further comment on that?
No, thank you. I just wanted to highlight the lack of input we had from our community on this decision, which may influence our assessment of how significant this is going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Yeah, just understanding how to frame this. I mean, this thing has been an evolution in so many ways, and even with us in terms of our knowledge, even with us in terms of our knowledge of the other councils involved, even with us in terms of our knowledge of having DIA here the other day and hearing from them of how the process worked and what they did. We all know that if you want to push consultation to have a specific outcome and predetermination, you can do so, and I'm sure other councils have done that. And to Councillor Piddington's point, it's a significant decision, and we did sort of, even though I think it's a very light response, we did do it with a view to this particular group of people, which I know our community feels safe with. And we didn't do it because we didn't actually have the full knowledge of and understanding of the process and what's going down south. DIA rings this morning and says it's very important and we can be the linchpin for making a decision. I'm not comfortable with that. I've done some back channeling, as I know Councillor Booth has, around Selwyn to feel comfortable and understand their process. I'd hate to think there was some predetermination around the fact that how they got their consultation to where they wanted to go. Other people now with DIA and decisions that are being, or discussions that are being made, all knowing they're going to have to join in some way, and we all just have to be mindful that if we are going to be the linchpin, we need to have some knowledge and understanding of what we can put into our narrative to make sure that we get the best out of it. So it's not, we will go with you, but we need to have some caveats.
That's all right. Going back to the significance point, perhaps we get into the general conversation and we can potentially come back to that because we may or may not need that point. Councillor Booth.
Just wondering where the officers are at with our water services delivery plan, considering we've actually committed to going, and you're obviously going to have to put something forward for 1st of September. So I assume that's sitting in draft, ready to go.
I'll cover that off in the general conversation.
Alrighty, nothing more on the line. So let's kick into that then and we'll circle back to significance if we need to make that decision wherever we end up, whether we think that's significant to take it back to community or not. And so the key things for me too is, so we've got a meeting on August the 26th, which is around water service delivery plan. We're going to deliver that no matter what. That's something, document we need to do, and Chief Executive will talk to that. Effectively, which pathway we go, whether it's in-house single, open for conversations with Southern, Selwyn, those sorts of things. We can speak to all that in a couple of pages within the water service delivery plan. So none of that is overly onerous. I would just, in my view, 26th of August for water service delivery plan, they're due by 3rd of September. Sort of in my view, any decisions post that with this current council, I believe, get into a point where it's sort of quite close to an election, and I think we probably should then not be making some of these decisions. So we've probably got a window up to the 26th, and then, significant decisions I think actually probably should, in my view, only wait for a future council potentially. But we'll pass now to the CE and we can start stepping through some of that stuff.
So 22nd of July, we had a meeting, a council meeting on water, and there were 2 resolutions that I think are crucial to this particular subject matter that we've got today. One was we confirmed that option 3 is the preferred option, but the Timaru District Council was unable to proceed with this option at this time due to there being no other councils to partner with, and then later on endorses the continuance of governance and office engagement with other councils through the establishment of a joint council governance and management working group to progress future establishment of a joint water service council controlled organisation. So effectively that resolution we have picked up and been working on that since the 22nd of July. And a week ago we had a conversation with Southern Water, who had sent a letter inviting us to participate in Southern Water. Southern Water also invited Selwyn to that meeting, so it was the 3 councils plus Selwyn. Selwyn at that meeting said they will make no decisions until post local government elections. So effectively they were not in a position to entertain other partners. Plus, Selwyn said that they would have to consult. They only consulted on 2 options, one being in-house and a standalone CCO. So they would have to go through a process with their council, new council, to come up with an option whether we join or not. They've already established their CCO, so their CCO is established, it is up and running. The chair of that CCO and the interim CEO also visit us later on in that day, and they're quite keen for us to join that particular entity, as is with Selwyn. So effectively, given we didn't have an option on the table for Selwyn, because we don't know which way they will go, we pursued talking to Southern. Southern are keen to get a decision now so that it can actually help frame their WSDP as well as ours, and we've got some time for that if we choose to do that. When you look at the and we've had quite a lot of discussion. So it's a couple of the really tricky, well, they weren't tricky actually. One was on price harmonisation. As you all know, that's very, very important to us given our cost structures. And Southern are clear that they will not be doing price harmonisation, and that no council will pay more than they otherwise would if they were still standalone. So I can hand these out. I've done quickly I've done what is in the water service paper that was done by Morrison Lowe back when we first went to join them. And this does indicate the different prices for those 4 different councils. And you can see that by 2033 to 34, ours has not taken a significant increase, whereas the likes of Gore and Central Otago have. Clutha is their increase is steeper than ours, but it's still a lot less than those other 2. And I think that that's a factor of the capital program that they're facing. Sorry. And when you look at Samhain and Timaru have the same gap in the cost per connection. So I think the sector's realising that price harmonisation isn't a thing. It's not required in the legislation, and therefore, given the differences in the schemes, it would be near on impossible. So that matter's been sorted. They're also very clear that, and I would say this will probably speak for Selwyn as well as Southern, that the debt that the councils carry in terms of their schemes, the cost of that debt will go to those schemes. It will not be cross-subsidised to other schemes. The covenants for borrowing, that will be carried through, but they have to work out what that looks like, and that is a challenge. When you talk to the sector as a whole, it's a challenge for the whole sector. How do you maintain 500% for each individual councils that's within a CCO? That needs to be sorted, but it's an issue they're prepared to take on and look at. Part of the reasoning for the price differences is the types of schemes and how they're operated. That is what we've been told, but I think that needs further work. I think the biggest gain for joining Southern is in the headroom for your debt. While our headroom as a standalone CCO will be sitting around somewhere around 30 to 40 million come year 10. The collective debt of this 4 is around the 164 million level, just by share having it together. Also, the 4 would be close to 50,000 connection, and that brings with it much better LGFA covenants in terms of your WWO. And when you look at the analysis on page, sorry, it's hard to read. When you look at those analyses, the covenants with LGNZ improve for all councils under this under this option. It's true to say they also improve under Selwyn. Selwyn, at the moment, as a standalone CCO, will not meet their covenants, but with us they do. So they also need us. So effectively there's an issue in there that needs to be worked through for a number of councils.
Can I just ask you, please, just to clarify for me with regards to the debt headroom, I understood that also would be ring-fenced.
Yes, that's what I talked about earlier.
Yeah, so that being the case, then how really is that impacted by being part of a joint CCO with anyone else?
because what it does is, being a part of a joint CCO gives you the 500%. Us as a standalone council, as a standalone CCO, we're at about 410%. The organisation, the joint CCO, is sitting around the 300. The Southern, it will be sitting around the 380%. So actually, the joint CCO has better headroom and meets its covenants better.
But your point is you can't use someone else's debt headroom, that's the question?
That's the piece that I spoke about that needs to be teased out, because ComCom and DIA will, and also under the Companies Act, will treat the company as a company. Okay, one company. Now, if you get a council that needs significant investment, and that council may tip over the 500%, but the company itself has to stay within. And I'm not convinced that's an issue, because most of them will be well under it. What else was I going to say?
So, Mr. Trainer, have they received a copy of?
Yep.
Got an email?
Yeah, they got it.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
So we could invite Andrew Strawn as the project lead for Southern, and Stu as the Morrison Low person. They're here to take questions from you, or they could actually back up what we're saying here.
We can throw to you if you like. Are you, sorry to put you on the spot, are you guys happy to just do a wee brief, Andrew? Do you want to lead off, if that's okay?
Absolutely. Okay. It's Andrew Strawn here. Apologies for the lighting. I seem to be sitting under some sort of spotlight. Yeah, just in terms of what we've brought together in the last couple of weeks, the request out of that council executive group meeting was what are the mechanisms that we saw benefit in Timaru coming on board, and what are the mechanisms that would provide for that. So that's where we took some advice from respective legal teams and came up with a mechanism to allow that. That applies both to Timaru and Waitaki, and that leverages the previous analysis and work that's been done when Timaru was first looking to join the group. So there's the value really is captured in the decision paper, where we quite a useful sit down with the respective teams is to step through the benefits of coming on. But prior to 3 September is that Timaru is involved in the design and early design of the organisation to be sure that it meets Timaru's requirements, versus if you come on after that date, then by necessity things are going to start moving, and we're going to have to then we're having to it's more difficult to bring other councils on. Not impossible. The group is founded on the principle of bigger is better, and the more councils that we have, like-minded councils we have, the better it is for everyone, the stronger we all are together. So other benefits on if we're able to get this across the line is that we've got to start thinking about a transition board and CE. And if we've got a larger organisation, we're going to have better calibre candidates looking to join. So there's what else can we other points worth picking out. Basically the team has been formed, and we're ready to get cracking. We're focused on now what does this organisation look like that we all want to build. We've done a lot of groundwork over the last 6 months, working out with rural schemes. Those rural schemes, we're considering them in the fourth water. So that's my little sales spiel for the work that we've done. We've got a great team. We're rolling, and we're ready to embrace other partners. Stu, shall I hand over to you?
Yeah, I'll be a bit more technical and a bit more specific around some of the stuff that Nigel Trainer has already been talking about, and just cover off some of that stuff. So I think just as a starting point, reiterating that the idea of price harmonisation has been off the table with Southern Water done well. Pretty close to since its inception. It wouldn't have gotten this far if price harmonisation was on the table. And I would suggest that I think every single joint CCO model that I have been involved in looking at across the country at least, and even the ones I haven't been involved in, I think all assume that price harmonisation isn't going to occur at least for a minimum period of typically 5 years or longer. And again, politically, none of those CCOs would have gotten over the line if price harmonisation was still on the table. So I guess there's some assurance around that. Around the debt component and where the benefits are and the ring fencing of the debt and ring fencing of the 500%. Look, I think it is fair to say that there are some complications that need to be worked through operationally around how some of that works. So I think, as a starting point, Nigel touched on the critical thing, which is that the entities, the 500% or more specifically, there's this thing called an FFO to debt ratio, which some of you may or may not have heard about. I haven't been in your council conversations before, that the entity will have to comply with is at an entity level. It's not going to be measured on an individual council level, but then within that, that is what's driving, in some cases, the revenue requirements of the entity. So how much money it has to generate from its customers is partly driven by what it can borrow, and how it conforms with a debt to revenue ratio or an FFO to debt ratio, whatever you want to measure it on. That means that in some cases it may require less revenue because it's got more councils in it and it's staying well below the 500%, or in some cases it might require more to make sure it does stay under that 500%. And I guess the operational bit that is still to be worked through is how does that get allocated across everyone, given that they all benefit from this aggregation at a debt level and the debt being measured at a total level. So there are some complications around that, and really where that comes in is if one council is breaching it, but and on its own would have otherwise required more revenue to stay within that covenant, but the other councils are not, and at an entity level it's not breaching it, how do the benefits of that get shared? Does that original council share in that reduced revenue requirement, even though it's the one breaching it, or does it not? And I think those are pricing principles that are still to be agreed as we go through the work to establish the foundational documents of the entity. Again, as Mr. Traynor has already indicated, these are the key things that, I guess, being part of the entity or any joint entity, it doesn't have to be Southern Water done well. I'm here to sell Southern Water done well, but it doesn't have to be Southern Water done well. Being part of that establishment around those and guiding those principles at the outset is a big advantage, because you get to at least partly dictate what that looks like. I think the other one to note there, of course, is that as we get that increased scale, we get access to better lending covenants. So we can just borrow on better terms than we can if we're smaller. So again, how do you share those benefits? Because if you're on your own, you wouldn't have access to those same benefits. So there are some of those bits that just need to be worked through. We've always operated on the principle that everyone would share in the benefits equally. But that doesn't have to be the case, and there could be different ways that we might be able to cut that up and chop that up. So, but in terms of ring fencing debt, all of the interest costs and allocating all the costs of servicing that debt out to everyone, that can be ring fenced really easy. That bit's the easy bit. It's just the other bit, the mechanism about these 500% limits and how that gets applied across everyone. Sorry, it's probably incredibly technical, and I probably need a diagram to go through that properly with everyone. So I'm trying to keep it high level, but it's difficult on this particular topic.
No, that's all fine, Stuart. I think most of us are over that. That's good. That's helpful. Did you have anything further, or we might just perhaps go to questions for the two of you?
I'm quite happy to leave it at that, and then between Andrew and I'll leave the technical questions for myself, and then Andrew can pick up any of the broader operating model, project type questions.
Maybe just a further point from me, just around, so the Southern Water Group have put together a water services delivery plan that creates essentially a placeholder for Timaru and Waitaki to join the group if that's a decision that the council makes. So rather than the need to go back to our the group of 3 councils that we have at the moment, there is that placeholder there, and so we're looking to secure decisions from our group of 3 councils to have that water service delivery plan ready there with that placeholder for Timaru to take up if that's the decision that you arrive at.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll go to Councillor Scott online.
Thank you. Andrew, I just want to thank your team for answering my questions over the last couple of days. I really do appreciate that, and I think I hope my own fellow councillors have appreciated your answers for that. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for that. I just want to talk to you about the urgency of this. On the 6th of August, we received a really friendly letter from your mayors, basically saying we want to hold hands. We understand this is a big piece of work to get around. I think we're whether now or in the future were the words that were used in letters. So what's the change? What's the change in the last 5 days to now put our council under a bit of pressure to make an urgent decision? That's question 1.
Shall I deal to question 1? I guess so. In the decision paper, it really lists out the benefits of joining now versus later. So there are definite benefits to being on board at inception and getting and aligning the water service delivery plans. There's the benefits I just mentioned briefly around co-design and from the outset designing something that is suitable for Timaru. But there's also the added avoided costs as well of instead of having to submit a water service delivery plan that sets you off in one direction, then you need to go through a change process associated with that plan to say whichever way you decide to go in the future post 3 September, there's change associated with that. So there's definite benefits in arriving at a decision now. It's cleaner, and we're all in the same walker, if you like, right from the outset. But it's not to say that a decision later that still achieves the outcome, but it's just with the addition, the loss, some of those lost benefits and the additional costs of having to rework and change direction or come up with a direction decision. And to my mind, I'll put it out there that all the information to make an informed decision is available and is on the table. So delay just brings cost, and so it's. But I guess everyone has to. You're on a journey that the Southern Water Group of Councils has been on the last 6 months with us. So asking you to come up to speed and get your heads around all of this. So you've got to be mindful of that. You have to be able to make a fully informed decision.
Okay, thanks. My other question is just around.
Oh, sorry.
Which is quite.
Oh, sorry, Stuart. Did you have a comment on that as well?
I was just going to say. I mean, I guess the other element of this is probably a little bit more political game playing, and probably sits more around DIA's comments about Timaru being a linchpin here. Obviously, there are other councils that are facing difficult decisions and DIA scrutiny, whose decisions may be influenced by your decision as well. So I think there's a little bit of a domino effect here that I think is also being considered in terms of that urgency. But I don't want to get into too much detail around what that is, but I'm sure it's something that you guys are all aware of as well.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Scott.
Okay, thanks. This is probably more operational and technical, but one area that I am passionate about, and that's obviously we're bound by our Canterbury water management strategies and our Canterbury land and water regional plans. And so how do you see that working with Otago? we're very Canterbury bound, where our legislation and framework is driven around Canterbury and you're Otago. So how will that be managed, those kind of frameworks? Because to me, that's going to be really tricky.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. The things in common, we all have Te Mara Arawai, the Water Services Authority, sitting over our shoulders, and reporting up to the Commerce Commission and Department of Internal Affairs. So one part of it is, so those are the big parts of the jigsaw. The fact that we have different regional authorities, that will feed into consenting, but looking at the wastewater standards, so with new wastewater standards, if you meet those standards, it reduces the more onerous aspects of consenting. But whatever the case is, with the scale of the entity, so my background in water services is that you've got a highly skilled person who knows resource consents and consenting processes. With that scale, that person just will have an understanding of the ORC rules and the Environment Canterbury situation. So in that sense, scale is your friend, is that you've got a team that's there, that's servicing the needs for the expanded organisation, rather than just one person or 0.2 of a person.
Thanks, and we'll go to Stuart, and then.
Sorry.
No, that's all good.
I'll just pick up I'll pick up a few other little points around that as well, and I guess Andrew touched on that, but with the wastewater standards and other direction from government, we're seeing the regulatory powers of regional councils in the water space becoming less and less. So that doesn't mean that the regional councils are going to go away and they're not going to have a play, but there is an increasing focus on national standards and national regulatory approaches around this. So, but the other side of that, I think, as well is, and again, they're not part of the model at this stage, but if we look to the likes of Waitaki, and there are other councils in the country as well that span regional council boundaries, Taupo, I think Rotorua also do up north. Some of those other councils, that there are processes and systems in place which councils are already doing this at a council level without the scale of an entity, where they are working across different regulators in terms of regional council approaches and regional council bylaws that might differ across depending on which part of the district they're dealing with. So I don't see that as an insurmountable challenge for the entity, given I think this is a challenge that some councils deal with day by day. And certainly, if we manage to eventually get Waitaki on board, we're probably picking up expertise that already has the skills to be able to deal with both different regulatory standards and be able to balance those off.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, sorry, I'll just check in. Is that, you comfortable with that? Cool.
All good, thank you.
Perfect. I was just going to answer it with what regional councils? No, hasn't happened yet. I know, I was going to go to Councillor Fye.
Thank you. I've got a question around Schedule 5 first, and then I've got another more general question. But my first question is, I note in that Schedule 5 it contemplates that there will be a single director per shareholder. Our local experience would suggest that when individual shareholders make individual appointments, you don't get the best outcome for a company. And I just wondered how set in concrete is that, or was there discussion around having a shareholder council that makes joint appointments?
Can I direct to you on that one, Stu?
I did not think that we had that provision in there. Certainly the proposed model, as far as I understand it, and I helped kind of design it, so I'm kind of surprised to hear the comments you read, is that we were setting this up with a shareholder representative committee, shareholder council, whatever we want to call it. We're just trying to be careful with the language there because it can confuse. But we were setting up a shareholders representative forum that had, at the moment, proposed 2 representatives from each council. Collectively, they would make decisions around the appointment of board members. They would at least make a recommendation about that, what the mechanism for how they get appointed, and whether the delegation to actually appoint it goes down to that shareholders committee or stays at the shareholder level hasn't quite been determined, but the recommendation of the appointment would be at that shareholders representative council, shareholders representative forum, whatever we want to call that thing. The thing that I think we all know what it is. That is where the decisions around appointment of board members would be. If it has one director per council, that's probably more of a numbers thing rather than an actual each council gets to appoint a director. But I wouldn't have thought that we want to continue with one director per council if we grow to 12 councils, because that would be 12 directors, so that would be nuts. If we're sitting at 4 or 5, that might make sense, and usually we'd recommend a odd number of directors anyhow. So we'd probably be looking for 3 or 5, probably 5, I would have imagined.
So, and I'll just add to that. So in terms of the Schedule 5 to the commitment agreement, as a group of councils, we haven't populated that document. So for those who don't know what Schedule 5 is, it's just a whole heap of key decisions which then will flow into those establishment documents like the transfer agreement, shareholders agreement, etc. So we haven't as a group completed that yet. We've done a couple of design sessions where that's where we've come up with those key design principles around the joint CCO, and those are held in the Water Services Delivery Plan. The things like one council, one vote, those are price harmonisation terminology we were discussing earlier. So that's as far as we've taken it, and I guess that's the benefit is by coming on board, you're involved at the very earliest stage in those discussions around how are we going to make this organisation work for us all.
Thank you. Actually, that just reminded me of another question I have, if I may. The one council, one vote, I probably agree with that. But have you had any discussions about how the shareholding actually works? And so is it just going to be one share per council, or was there some advice on whether the shares would still reflect the size of the equity introduced into the CCO?
Stu's got some good words on this.
So mechanistically, the one council, one vote was something that was deemed to be really important from a perspective of protecting the interests of the existing councils when another council comes to join us. And obviously you can imagine if suddenly Christchurch came knocking, for example, and we didn't have that provision, everyone else's rights get eroded pretty quick. On the other hand, the counter to that is that it becomes a less attractive proposition for Christchurch to join us under that circumstance. But there's always opportunities to change constitutions and shareholders agreements. If it was determined that Christchurch joining was so beneficial, we'd be happy to reduce our vote. In terms of the shareholding itself, our latest discussions and considerations here are probably that the shareholding itself in the entity would be tied to most likely the net assets that are contributed to the entity. So, and one of the main reasons for that is to make it easier for the public to understand that. So we are not giving up anything. We are exchanging our net assets for ownership in an entity that effectively is backed up by the same equivalent, but also, to put it bluntly, accounting simplicity in terms of making it much easier from an accounting recognition perspective and making sure we don't have giant losses on our balance sheet when this happens that are all artificial anyhow. But so there is a general consensus that most likely the shareholding would be tied to net value of assets. Again, that would be the net book value of your assets minus the debt that you're contributing. So effectively the equity that you're contributing to the entity when you join. So it makes it easier also if someone was to leave to then reallocate shares.
Okay, and my final question for the moment is just so we understand the gravity of this decision. If we decide now that we want to join and we authorise the CE to sign the commitment agreement, what does getting out of that look like? If then we get down the track and we go, actually, this isn't the best outcome for our ratepayers, and we want to back out of that, at what point is the point of no return? And reputation aside, because I know that's never going to end well, aside from that, what are the steps for exit?
I can cover it. So in terms of the commitment agreement as it stands, the exit provisions, any council can leave the commitment agreement for any reason that it determines. So that's quite straightforward, and the commitment agreement provides for that. And really, the commitment agreement is for the period through to joint CCO establishment. The key document is the Water Services Delivery Plan that the council submits. That's the document that the council has to attest to in terms of financial sustainability, and the chief executive has to sign off on as well. And once that's submitted to the DIA, you are held to that plan, to deliver to that plan. To modify that plan, there's an approval process where you have to go back to the DIA and request submit a change request to it. So that's really the key document. Once you step down that path of joint CCO and submit that plan, then it's really in the DIA's hands as to whether they approve, and you're looking to, say, leave the partnership. It's in the DIA's hands as to whether or not they would agree to allow you to do that, basically, and change your approach. So Water Service Delivery Plan is the key document.
Sorry, can I just ask a follow-on on that? So what you're saying is the 3rd of September is the point of no return?
Once you submit that Water Services Delivery Plan, there'll be a nuance around acceptance of that plan. I guess that's where, once that's approved and in place, then that's what you're bound to.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pye. Right, we'll go back to the room. In the room, questions? Councillor Booth.
Yeah, so the way I see this is that it really doesn't matter about the numbers. It's actually about the water delivery organisation and the costs. You're looking at the governance, the management and the core systems, and they are the only numbers that will be, I guess, shared evenly with per connection in each district. So therefore, a number potentially around about $100 a connection. The rest of it is actually going to be sheeted back to the participating council, or the council that spent the money on the pipes or the water, and each council would run an account basically showing what their I guess their headroom was, and where the costs have been spent, and therefore the rates are set within that area according to that council situation. So in my mind, it takes all the numbers away. It really comes down to where we are, and do we want to be joining potentially something with 3 partners at this stage, or 4 partners, or just simply 1 potentially, and in our own district. And I think we don't actually need to do anything right now. And in the recommendations, it should actually say do nothing, as most recommendations should. So I guess I'm surprised that's not there. But we've taken the step of commitment going towards a CCO, and now it's down to put the numbers aside. It's actually who geographically are our logical partners. And I guess we're in Canterbury. We're not in Southland or Otago, and I guess I've got a bit of a concern there, whether that it all eventuates at some stage. But the logical thing, when you're buying a business, it's very hard to deal with 4 or 5 different suitors when you've actually potentially could do it with 1 and form the basis. And then you can move forward. Once we've joined that CCO, it's up to the CCO then to work out whom they would like or allow to participate within that, obviously with the shareholder approval, but still they would be driving that. And as such, while Selwyn have said they only want one. But in their statement of intent, it clearly says their aspiration is to join, to take partners and develop into a multi. So while I'm surprised there's this urgency, I think we've got time to make a considered decision around what we have on the table and potentially in the future. And I think it's all in time. And very shortly we will. We don't need to rush into this, which I'm just as I say, I don't think there's any need. The numbers are all irrelevant to me. It's about the setup and participating in a water service delivery organisation. So those numbers will remain the responsibility of those individual councils. Their debt, everything. And if they've got a higher cost of delivery, that will be sheeted back to them as well. The only common cost is going to be the governance and the core systems that you would expect to share. So with that, I would like to suggest that we reject all of the recommendations and that we would do nothing at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Booth, and that's always an option by default to do nothing. We'll come back to your suggestion and whether it's a motion later on. I'll give you that opportunity first. Councillor Shannon and then Councillor Buddington.
I'm a bit with you, Councillor Booth, in that although I do appreciate the urgency as far as the Southern Water team is concerned. I appreciate what they're looking to achieve here, and by not agreeing to the recommendations, we may well be losing that influence on the shaping and the detail of the shareholder agreement and the constitution. I understand that. Meanwhile, we have already asked our officers to design a plan which potentially we sign off on the 26th of August. The Selwyn thing is very interesting and attractive to me. However, politics is yet to play a part, so we don't really know what that's going to look like, and it's not spoken of, but of course we also know that Ashburton will have a new mayor, so who knows what the political influence on where they currently sit is. So noting that our officers are already venturing down a path of a plan that does say that we're going to be exploring, well, we do want to engage in a joint agreement, and then following that we do have time up our sleeve to see how some of these other opportunities shape up, and we're also grateful that Southern Water, in their letter to us, has said that the door will remain open. Noting again, we understand and appreciate your sense of urgency and what we do potentially get to miss out on at the early stages. But personally, I prefer to wait and see how some things do play out and have a look, make our decision on the 26th of August, and a new council as well have more input into where that heads.
Yeah, I think we're being rushed without all the information we need. If this goes to DIA on the 1st of September, we're locked in. We don't need to be locked in. Even Southern has said it's not impossible, it'll be difficult to come in later. Personally, the DIA saying we're a linchpin, they're not our ratepayers, don't care about them. As for Waitaki, Waimati, Mackenzie, they're all big boys, they've decided to go alone. So I think we should be concerned about what we're doing, and I'm with Councillor Booth. We should just stay with status quo and work through it. The options will come as more people have done their work and due diligence. We're being rushed into a decision, and if anyone sees those figures for Central Otago, Clutha and Gore, they'll think we're mad joining them. even though it is only technically in a governance role. So, yeah, my vote is to do nothing, except the path we're already on.
Can I respond to some of those comments? In this situation, time is not on our side anymore. So effectively, our council has resolved to establish a standalone CCO. Our plan that will be going up to the DIA will be stating exactly that we are now on the path to establish a standalone CCO. And that will take time. Effectively, the organisation has to be set up with its own financial system. It's got to be ring-fenced. It's going to have to ensure that all other systems are moved across. We're going to have to go through and get legal advice on moving all the covenants that we have on various properties across when the assets go across. So there's a lot of work to be done in 20 months. We can signal in that WSDP that we are going to look at other options, but that window will fast close, because otherwise we'll run ourselves out of headroom to actually deliver our own plan. So we're going to have to be very, very mindful of that. While you say you're being rushed, actually you're not being rushed. This has been to you a number of times, and the information that's come to you a number of times is identical. As Councillor Booth says, the numbers are the same. You put up Selwyn numbers exactly the same as this. Selwyn numbers are identical to either Gore or Clutha. They're virtually the same. So effectively that's null and void. It's a case now of what is our time frame of getting a decision made if you want your preferred option of 3 having a multi-council CCO. And if we don't do this one, then you're going to be waiting until probably January to get a decision. By the time Selwyn get their new council put in place, if new council, and remember, they're getting a new council, the new council comes in place, they're going to have to resolve to actually, the company will have to put up a proposal to them to let us in. If they resolve that, then they're going to have to consult, and then they're going to have to do all the hearings again, and then out the other side. So you're looking well into the new calendar year. Again, we can wait on that, but then we're going to be really up against it to get everything done in time for 1 July 27, which is your date that you've got to get this thing moving or hand it over. So that's the other piece that we've got to be mindful of.
I'll go to you in a moment. Councillor Pies had her hand up for a little bit, and then we'll go Councillor Scott and then come back to the room, which is Councillor Burt. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Trainer. I agree with some of what you're saying, but this has been quite a dynamic situation, and new information is coming to us all the time. I agree that we need a line in the sand of when we go, actually, none of this is working and we need to start setting up our own CCO, but I don't think that needs to be tomorrow or the next day, because Selwyn set their CCO up pretty damn quickly from making the decision. I just want to quickly revisit the Selwyn not making a decision until after the election, because I understand that. I get that it's a constitutional and it's rests with the shareholder, but my understanding is that their water services delivery plan clearly sets out that they set up that CCO with a view to having other partners. And so I just wonder what DIA's response would be when a decision to accept another partner would go against a water services delivery plan that's been approved by the DIA. And probably my last question is, do we want a guaranteed result, or do we want the right result for our ratepayers?
Thanks, Michelle. Councillor Scott.
Was Mr. Trainer going to answer those questions?
Oh, I didn't think they were questions. I thought it was more of a statement. So effectively, when we talk about the right decision, whether we go with Southern or Selwyn are identical, as far as I can see, because this is not about geography anymore. This is about a company running your water service. artificial lines drawn on rivers goes out the door. So effectively, we've heard from the DIA that 200,000, population 200,000 is the right size. That means the boundaries do have to go out the window. So effectively, the right decision is either, but it's up to you guys to make that, which one you feel more comfortable with.
And I think that's a good follow-on for the question I had from Councillor Pine, is that we're in the driver's seat right now, and I'm not sure why we are being rushed until we actually make sure we are making the right decisions for our ratepayer. And I don't believe we've done enough due diligence on either Southern or Selwyn. And today, I think I'm in line with the rest of my fellow councillors that I will not be rushed into this decision. And we've got a lot more due diligence to do with other parties. Yes, we have a resolution for a standalone CCO, but we made it very clear in our intent that we want partners and we need to work with people. And so I think we haven't done enough work.
So we respond to that. The last thing we want is potentially 3 CCOs. One standalone in Selwyn, one standalone in Timaru, and a joint one down south. So we need to think that through. I'll be keen to find out what information you require from councillors so that we can actually put it up to you.
I guess we did receive a letter from Selwyn though, indicating that they were keen to investigate with us. And to be fair, they're a similar size. They're, it's geographically they're similar. They've got one major town and some water schemes, and they're in Canterbury. So unless we actually wait and look at those proposals in due course with the right amount of time around them, we're not making an informed decision around, as I say, for the best benefit of our ratepayer. As I say, I think we need to just tie-ho a wee bit and let's consider we're in a good position. Let's not just underestimate our own situation, which is actually quite good. We've indicated DIA clearly what we want to do, and it's my impression that they are in support, and if it takes a little bit more time, so be it.
Councillor Burt.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where DIA are trying to put the pressure on because we're doing their work for them. And at the end of the day, when we had DIA in the room here, I pointed out this whole thing is about face. They already know the outcomes of the potential for a plan that both Mackenzie and Waimea can put up. They'll also know the potential for a plan that Waitaki can put up. They have the numbers already, and if they're not directing them and they're waiting for it and then telling them, that doesn't help us. It's never helped any of us, and I agree. And the caveat of doing nothing means not doing nothing, and we're open for business. But I agree with all the sentiment, unfortunately, of the other councillors at the moment. We are in the driver's seat, and we don't need to jump on board just because we're going to do DIA's business with it. And I also agree. I understand where you're coming from, Nigel, in terms of it's no good having 3, water authorities and what have you. But this is just too much. There's too much to get wrong here for our ratepayers.
I don't believe we are in the driving seat. Selwyn have set up their CCO. They've already got the constitution done, and to enter into that, we'll be negotiating with an entity that already exists. Southern is about to set theirs up, and they will do that on their own. And then, if we decide to join them, we'll be in the same situation as Selwyn. We will be joining an existing entity. So effectively, we will have little say on who the board is, little say on the CE, And same with Selwyn, little say in there because they'll be boxing ahead. When we say Selwyn's fully set up, it isn't fully set up. It's an entity that's already registered. They haven't transferred assets yet. They're about to do that. So that'll be that entity will be functional December, January of this year. So again, you can learn lessons from Selwyn, but I think they realised there was a lot more work to it than they realised. When we talk about the best for our ratepayer, yes, maybe we do hold back a little bit, but I keep telling everyone these are very similar. Probably the one piece that we also maybe a bit of due diligence on is the growth. So we know one is going to grow. What headroom have they got for that growth? No, I don't think it's big.
As I said, the numbers, the cost of that will be sheeted directly back to them. So, and if they can't do that, they'll need to increase their rate to increase their headroom to allow for that extra development, if that's the case. So, as I say, it's irrelevant. I guess. Now, what else was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
It's right, we can come back to you if you like. Yeah. We'll go to Councillor Pye.
Thank you. I'll just comment, Mr. Trainer, on your geography doesn't really matter, and I tend to agree with that. But in my mind, I've said this before, if one of the benefits which we've indicated of a CCO and a joint CCO is attracting talent, my personal view is the closer to Christchurch we are, the better the talent, or the more easier it will be to attract that talent. To answer your question about what more information we require, I think we need to work with Selwyn to get to a position of what a commitment agreement would look like, or a kind of principled approach on what things we're looking for. And I disagree that we're not in the driver's seat, because Selwyn's constitution will need to be totally rewritten. It's a very basic, simple constitution written for a single shareholding entity, and you'd expect it to be basic. So pretty much everything in that constitution will need to change. So I feel like the negotiation there is actually no different to the negotiation with Southern, who are yet to write theirs.
Thanks. Councillor Pye. Look, for me, I mean, the key thing with this decision, I think we've all pretty good as far as consensus on this from day dot, and I would like us to be moving forward. I don't think key decisions on water should be, split in that regard. I don't want it to hang on a, chair's vote or anything. It's too important for our community. So, if we do need to go away and do further work. But, I mean, the key thing for us, where we started out well over a year ago, or many years ago, but let's go to a year ago, we tried to get our communities to work together, what we deemed to be the obvious ones. They weren't keen, but as of yesterday, they're still keen to progress shared services. So maybe that is an option that our single CCO, if we don't have success, looks to enter into shared service agreements with the likes of Waimate, Mackenzie's, and if they have that choice. I mean, Mackenzie, who knows, could be told to go with Southern Water. We don't know where they're going to be. If there's a bigger entity set up, maybe that's the path that they will travel. But interesting enough, some of those ones don't see Selwyn as an option, but I don't think necessarily that they'll be in the driver's seat. But for me, this has been around getting the best outcome for us. I am concerned that at a point in time we won't be in the driver's seat. I get your point, Michelle, and I probably tend to agree that I think we're still, I think we're going to be an asset to any water CCO. However, what our negotiation powers will be if we're the last in won't be. What ideally we wanted in the first instance was to be in the negotiating power and bring people along with us. But look, what we might do is go to see if there's anyone that hasn't spoken that wants to speak. Obviously, we've got Councillor Jackson absent, and an option is to do nothing. We will have to, on the 26th, give very clear direction around that water service delivery plan and that sort of D-Day as far as where we're going to go there. So we do need...
No, you'll be endorsing it on the 26th.
I like that analogy because it depends which beach we land on, how much we're going to encounter.
So the water service delivery plan on the 26th will be just about the final draft because it has to go on the 3rd.
Yeah. But at that point in time, what we put in as far as our direction is key to the point made by Andrew and Stuart. That's the key document for us. So that is the deadline. So we need to be comfortable with what's in that is going to be the pathway that we need to take moving forward. We'll go Councillor Booth and then I'll just ask Councillor Oliver and Councillor Parker if you've got any comments before we move it forward. Councillor Booth.
I guess what you've just mentioned, there's no reason to make a decision, you know, just to rush into something. It's just you're doing everything for the wrong reasons. I think, you know, if we make an indication to DIA, I may be naive, but that we're considering who to go with and subject, so that obviously our water services delivery plan will be subject to that, but we've already got something in draft, and that's probably going to reflect our situation as and carrying on until we get through until a period of time where we can make a fairly judged decision. I can only assume that that's going to be acceptable to them.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a very complex situation, and in my head, considering what's been said in the chamber, I'm still thinking. Things that I will point out is that TDC can file a water service delivery plan that anticipates joining a CCO. So we can do that. I'm not sold on the geography concern or issue. And the whole joining and insisting versing the benefits of being part of that development, but we've kind of teased that out again, that it would have to be re-looked if Selwyn was a path that we wanted to go down. And with also the confirmation from that August 6th letter from Southern that it's now or in the future also gives some comfort that the door's not shut. So delivering a water service delivery plan that anticipates that we are going to join a CCO, I think I have a level of comfort with that at this stage, and park the rest. That's where I am at this minute.
Thank you. Look, and one thing just to confirm, with the Southern Water team, they don't anticipate that being the final numbers. They're very much of the view that bigger is better, and joining with Canterbury and Selwyn for them makes sense. Whether or not that's reciprocated, I don't know, and this is the challenge of these discussions. Councillor Oliver, I'll throw it over to you. Do you want to make any comment?
Oh, look, I just want to say there's been some really good conversation around this. I came, probably my decision changed a little bit yesterday after we got Mr. Trainer's letter from Selwyn. I thought that was pretty much put to bed. I did have some reservations early on around growth, how fast Selwyn were actually growing, but look, I think that we do need to do a bit more due diligence around that Selwyn possibly having a proposal for us. And to be honest, it feels a bit rushed. So yeah, I'm happy just to go with the general consensus and just hold off at this stage.
Yeah, I agree that we need to make the right decision, and I think for us, consensus in this one is important. I'm not of the view that these decisions are rushed, because yes, it's been driven by Southern to bring it to the table, but at our decision we did go and say further those conversations and bring the options back to council, bearing in mind that that 3rd of September deadline is coming up pretty close. So I think it's fair that all these options are being considered. In a perfect world, we would have had a decision on what our preferred model, was before that date of the 3rd of September and point to, who our partners were going to be, but I don't think we're going to get that today. So is there anyone else with any more comments that they want to make before I just suggest a way forward? So just a question for you, Stephen and Elliot. As far as not making a decision, can we just leave this on the table? Do we have to decline any recommendation or just leave it on the table?
You can just leave it on the table, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so is everyone comfortable with leaving it on the table at this point? Councillor Piddington.
Just keen to know what leaving it on the table actually means, as opposed to we don't want to go forward with this at the moment.
I think what the Mayor's indicating is that we're doing some due diligence on Selwyn and we're not discarding this one yet until we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my view is we shouldn't be taking any cards off the table because, again, there is risk with Selwyn, and in a year's time, if DIA, we don't know that DIA is going to overrule a future Selwyn council and say that they must join or let another partner in. I don't know how that's going to happen, and I'm not convinced that that one council is the best option. I think we should be looking at like-minded councils that want to work together and get those efficiencies. I mean, the key thing for me is around affordability, and those numbers all speak to working with other partners drives affordability. At a moment, there again, water's fascinating, and the fact that outside of a rate bill, people don't really look at it. They don't judge you unless it doesn't come through the taps. They're more interested in the cost and affordability of it, and that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve for the ratepayer. Andrew, I'll go to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just heard the term "do nothing." There's what's apparent to me is the setting up a standalone CCO has cost and has effort associated with it. So that's in terms of balancing the options that are available to you, that's important to have front and centre, as in we've got to do this, there's time and effort associated with it, and then once we arrive at a decision as to the party that we want to marry up with, then that's part of the equation. The opportunity that we have now at this point is that we've got, if we can bring yourselves on and share the vision, we can generate that momentum to bring other parties as well, and that's working on that principle. We're all stronger together. So if it's not now, then further down the line. And just the point as well around thinking about what makes us different. It's what's similar. Now we've all got rural communities with distinct water and wastewater needs, surrounded by farmlands, etc., and in isolated areas. So this entity is going to have a specialism for serving those communities and the new technologies that are available. So yeah, take your time, make the right decision. I support that.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate those comments. Look, and the key thing, I mean, yeah, this is challenging, but we've reached out to many partners and been declined many, many times, including, interesting enough, Selwyn, prior to December, at the time, who didn't want to set up we could have done a two-council CCO with them, and we could have brought that to the team here, and I think you probably would have, with what we're hearing now, joined on that path, but that wasn't an option. They said no back then, so I'm not convinced that in a year's time we'll get there. But if there's no... I'll go to you, Councillor Booth.
Yes, they've now set up their CCO, and their mandate is separated away from the council. So it's their business now to actually turn that into a delivery model And the best way of doing that is obviously getting the numbers up to the 50,000-ish to mitigate those costs to the benefit of all those involved. So it's the CCO that will be handling that rather than...
No, the council will have to approve it. So while the CCO can put up a proposal, Selwyn will have to approve it.
Yes, I know, but the direction is being set by the CCO at this stage. So,
I'm not convinced that, the CCO itself wants to work with partners. I'm not convinced that in a year's time, if the council has its way, that they're going to sign off. But that's a decision for them in the future. But that is the risk of making these decisions, because they've got definitely 8 new members around their council table. They had a community that didn't want their single council CCO. They just wanted it to stay in-house. So there's a fair chance that they will be obstructive, at the least, to get a joint council CCO, because that's further from what they want. So that is just a risk. I'm just highlighting it for the future. So there again, the conversation around 3 CCOs, 1 here, we do have to go down that path. Ideally, 2 would be better than 3. 1 would probably be better than 2. But, we're duplicating a whole lot of work and a whole lot of cost for the water user. But we're not going to get a decision today, and I think there again I will go back to the point that I think this is important, that we have consensus as opposed to a slim majority over these decisions. So we will park it now. Yes, Stephen.
So that's, just to confirm, if you don't make any decision today, Resolution 2025-86 will still stand. So that's instructing us to create a water services delivery plan which has a single CCO, with the view that we will keep working to join with a future partner in future. But it effectively means the water services delivery plan that is presented to you for adoption on the 26th of August will have that single CCO as the option.
Yeah. So then, as far as so we've got the current resolution which you'll work towards as far as delivering that water service delivery plan. If we were to, point toward the likes of shared services with our neighbours, those sorts of things, do we need a resolution to point to that for a water service delivery plan? Or
I think once you've got your standalone CCO up, they'll probably go out and see if they can do that. It won't stop them.
Yeah.
And the resolution was that we will continue to work towards joint enterprises where we can, so that would be within the remit of that decision, we would say.
Yeah. Which today is about. Councillor Pye.
Sorry, can I just clarify that? Because I thought the resolution was to approve the establishment of a joint or standalone CCO, and that the water services delivery plan was to be based on that model.
That is correct by my...
That's technically correct, but the reality is it's a joint CCO with only one organisation involved at this time.
We can't hear.
So
Thanks, Stephen.
can you hear now? Can you hear now?
We can hear you, yeah, but we didn't hear Stephen.
So the wording of the resolution is that it's a joint CCO, but effectively, since we have no other partners, it is a standalone one, with the view that we will try and entice partners after the adoption and after it's set up.
So you're correct, Michelle, on what the resolution says, but we will be setting up a CCO. And I think the thinking at that meeting on the 22nd of July is others would come and join us.
But who?
But aren't you trying to shut the door on that though, Nigel Trainer? Like, we want the time to work with potential partners. So are you saying
The WSDP will have to be in line with our resolution. Our resolution at the moment is to create a standalone CCO. You can say, yes, it will be joined in the future, but that's what it is. Yes, we can continue to work for potential partners, but at the moment we're full steam ahead to create a CCO.
I'm just trying to, pull up the email from Elliot last night where he said that yes, TDC could file a WSDP that anticipates a joint WSCCO model in the future without being specific as to who the other partners are.
Yes, you can do that as well.
Yes, you can do that. It will still be a single standalone CCO though, because you won't have any partners to identify and therefore file a joint WSDP. So
but we can say someone.
Yes,
Do we have to actually say the person or the company?
Yeah, that statutory provision supports a single CCO WSDP, indicating that the model in the future is likely to be joint, but it will still be a single CCO. Yeah.
So council sent us down the track at the last meeting to set up a CCO while we still talk to neighbours. So effectively, we will have 3 CCOs, unless we agree to either join Southern or Selwyn during that establishment period. But you'll have to go back to DIA to get their permission to alter the WSDP to be able to join the others.
Yes, you'll then be filing an amended WSDP to make it a joint CCO.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Shannon. Oh, sorry, and then Councillor Pudding.
Just a quick question, actually, in relation to the Selwyn Water letter, where on the 3rd page the proposed next steps was it suggests to prepare a joint TDC SWL letter to DIA confirming collaboration which TDC could attach to its water services delivery plan submission during September. I know it's just proposed, but has there been some thought around that, and would that require a resolution if we wanted to do that?
I only got the letter yesterday.
I wouldn't say technically it needs a resolution, but it would come to you for approval as part of the WSDP on the 26th of August.
Okay.
Councillor Scott.
Sorry, Elliot, I just want to go back to you, and your email, and you gave us an example of a single council from the Selwyn one actually, and the flexibility that they showed in theirs. And so is that something you visualise that we will have in ours, like as in when it talks around, while they'll be establishing a single entity under this WSDP, future partnership opportunities have remained a core consideration. Council remains open to future partnership opportunities, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to read it all out. But is that what you visualise we'll have in ours? Because that sold me. I was like, that's what we need to have too.
At the 22nd of July, we visualised that, but we visualised doing it straight from in-house to a joint CCO, joining with either Southern or Selwyn. We didn't visualise creating our own CCO in the process.
Like Selwyn's CCO is a single council CCO, and they have indicated, as they are permitted to do under the preliminary matters legislation, that it is likely to grow in size, and so they have described their theory behind implementing that growth in their WSDP. It's still a single CCO, and we're at a point where we need to file on the 3rd of September, and without a partner we will be filing a single CCO WSDP, and we can write however we want in it how we envisage future potential partnering to look. I hope that answers or helps address that question.
I think one of the things we just need to be conscious of, just for the next meeting, or maybe let's circulate something just to remind people of in-house versus single council CCO and the cost, and understanding the benefits, etc., because there is a chance that we will be in that state for a period of time. So don't rule that out, that we won't have partners for the next 3-5 years for whatever reason. So let's just be conscious that is where we're at the moment. So we really do need to plan around what we've agreed to and what we are now, as opposed to what we could be, because we've thought about what we could be and we need other people to sign that off. So that's what we're moving forward on, is the costs, etc., associated with a single council CCO. There
will need to be a establishment budget set. Our last indication it's heading up towards about 3 million, just to establish. So that will be coming next, and there will have to be a loan of some description.
I tend to think you're not sort of misrepresenting this, quite frankly. There's only ever going to be one CCO that runs the organisation. So whether it was going to be South or it was going to be some sort of an arrangement with Selwyn or Ashburton or even Mackenzie, ultimately that's what what we voted for was to go towards a single or a CCO model run water organisation, whether it's partially Selwyn or it's Southland or it's Mackenzie. That's what will happen. They're sitting there, even Waitaki, but it's just whatever arrangement we come to and how that relationship, what that might look like. So it still doesn't deter from the fact that we're in a good position and that we should just do nothing and actually start just talking with some of the people that are keen to establish an entity with us. So I might be waffling, but anyway.
Councillor Booth, that's not what you voted for. You voted to establish a joint or a single CCO, to establish one. I agree with that, but that's what we voted on.
Perhaps if I could add here, an important aspect of the WSDP is implementation. So although Selwyn's CCO WSDP had the description of likely future joining, they also provided a significant budget line item to set up their CCO, and they have done so. So there's no point in thinking that you can dial back the implementation because you've got a couple paragraphs saying that in the future you hope to hook your wagon to an established one. I think that's the rub for the DIA will be seeing the implementation plan to get to long-term financial sustainability as a single CCO, and simply indicating a hope or a likelihood is not going to subtract their interrogation of that implementation plan.
That is why it is not misrepresentation. It's exactly the path that we are on and could be on for some time. So, and that's the decision we've made, so that's where we are, but we need to own it.
This whole process has been established without the knowledge that this is where we were going to end up heading, and so many councils will be in this position because the government sent a clear message that you need to collaborate. and then has gone off and just let people do what they want. And then when it comes to ones who are actually at the table to collaborate genuinely, we're left in a position where we can't, because everyone's going, do we need to be first? What does it look like? Do we have enough knowledge? It's been an evolution of knowledge and understanding for us, and it is for everyone else. It's terrible.
There are actually very few single council CCOs being set up. The majority of them are either majority are joint CCOs or in-house.
Oh, sorry, is that Councillor Pye? Did you have a no?
I did. I just wanted to flip this on its head a little bit, if we can. Is there not an option to write our water services delivery plan based on a joint CCO, because that is what the recommendation said, establishment of a joint one or a standalone, and then if we cannot find partners, then ask for the variation for it to become a single one, which is just flipping on its head what was suggested, that we put in a single and then ask to be joint.
It's one and the same thing. It's you can call it joint, but it's actually single because it's only us. So your plan is to set up a CCO. You can call it joint if you want. You can call it single if you want. But that's our plan.
But I don't agree. Our plan was to set up a joint or single one. So by joining Southern or by joining Selwyn, we're establishing a joint CCO. I'm struggling to understand.
Because you haven't made that decision. The thing's got to go on the 3rd of September. At the moment, the resolution is for us to establish a CCO.
And one of the risks that carries, because effectively you have to do it at current state, so one of the risks it carries by doing the amended version is that the DIA would consider your joint CCO is non-compliant, and therefore they could bring in people to help make the decision for you. I think you have to be quite clear on the outcomes that you're seeking and the implementation plan for it at this stage.
And I'll just add that there's separate sections in the Preliminary Act for a joint WSDP and a single WSDP. And a joint WSDP has to clearly identify each of the territorial authorities in it, and the implementation plan has to be credible. And so you can't just have a half a joint WSCCO because that's just not going to be credible in my view. And it's clear that there's two paths, two doors, a single or a joint, and without partners you're going through the single.
Okay. I was under the impression that it was allowed to be more flexible than that.
The flexibility is around a future intention, and so if we look at Selwyn's WSDP, there's a clear intention, but they went through the single CCO door and they demonstrated an implementation plan for that single CCO to be financially sustainable, and those are the things that that's the minimum viable product, is an implementation plan for long-term financial sustainability.
But just to be clear, even if that is our water services delivery plan, and then we find out we do have partners and we have to seek a variation, which, you know, the feeling we get from DIA is they want us to work together, so they would endorse that. We don't have to rush out as soon as we've submitted that plan and it's been approved to start spending money setting up a single CCO, do we?
When you work back from the statutory delivery timeframes for the WSCCO, the timeframes get incredibly tight, and so every day that you delay increases the risk. And
the option of a single CCO involves a lot more work than in-house, and we're going to have to get on that journey.
I have had an offer via, there's other councils watching us, from Tamer. If you wanted to hear from Southern at all, she can join us online. Is that something anyone would like to hear from? No, that's okay.
Can I just say one thing? I'm a little bit frustrated by Mr. Trainer's view of anyone that's in business does not. 20 months is quite a long time to do your due diligence, to set up a business, to get things right. And the fact that we think we need to rush this again after the 3rd of September is incredibly frustrating. If we do our work right, any business can be set up within a 20-month window. And I absolutely disagree and feel incredibly frustrated that everyone thinks this is too hard and we need to rush. This is a dedicated piece of work that needs serious consideration for our ratepayers, and the fact that we think we can't deliver that within this time frame is mind-boggling. Anyone that's bought a business or established a business would consider this to be quite a large time frame. So I think that actually we all need to really think about our strategy after this and how we will deliver it as a team, because I just don't wear it. I just do not buy that attitude of this has got to be rushed. So I'm just saying it because I'm frustrated sitting here.
Councillor Parker, question.
So my question is that resolution was on the 22nd of July. So has council started to establish the standalone CCO? 21 days since the resolution.
No,
Has there been any movement
no, we've been
forward?
concentrating on trying to find some partners, and also we're starting to pull the draft WSDP together. Now, WSDP is quite a large document.
Priority.
Yeah, that's the priority.
Okay, thank you.
Look, I think from here...
But we have been thinking about the timeframes of getting a CCO up and running, because that has to be in the implementation plan.
Yeah, we will have to put a project plan in place with timelines around and start working towards implementing a single council CCO, and just be conscious of where we're going to have, the costs are going to lie effectively. And, then you're going to have moments in time where you're going to have duplication with other councils that are on the same path effectively. So, yeah.
Can I just add, this is a highly regulated business. This is not a simple business, but more than that, it's a business with a large amount of integration with other council activities. And so there's going to be some pathway dependencies that get created when other councils are setting up their CCOs. And so you're disrupting that. That is, I think, one of the risks with entering into the negotiation once other councils have CCOs up and operating. They're all driven towards statutory deadlines that they have to complete over the next couple of years in an integrated way with their parent, with their shareholding councils.
During a meeting with Selwyn the other day, they indicated it was only 1.8 million to set up their CCO, plus it's only taken 6 months. They started in January. So, and there's only ever going to be one CCO.
Depends what bucket, what costs are in. Does that include all their systems and all the rest of it? So we just need to do that discussion with them. I mean, we might be talking about apples and oranges here.
Yeah, look,
we've got a motion on the table, haven't we, or not?
No, we're not concerned with the motions on the table, I think, but Councillor Fiddington.
I guess while we've said no, from my perspective, I just feel rushed. So as this shakes down, we are open to other partners, and it may be Southern, who haven't shut the door on us close completely, but I just want a feel of where we're going along the line. And as Peter pointed out, what part the DIA are going to play in these councils that's sitting out alone.
Yeah.
This all might shake down in 6 months and we're happy with what happens, but right here and now, I can't accept the motions in front of us.
I think the concern across some of the, councils that are willing now are conscious also that, councils will change, and actually, to get approval from individual councils to have other shareholders join when actually new elected members don't know anything about it and want to be, stand alone with parochial reasons and all that. So, next year will be quite different in this regard. I think the conversations will probably be harder as far as getting things moving forward. But just be conscious that we are on a path of effectively a single council-controlled organisation. That's the decision we've made. And I personally am of the view that Selwyn is going to be extremely hard to get over the line, and we might end up being with the ones that get told to be with us potentially. And who knows, post-September, Mackenzie might get told, and then we've got a two-council CCO, which probably won't have a lot of benefit for our ratepayers. But I don't think we're... is there anything anyone else wants to add to the discussion that might help for WSDP on the 26th? If not, I think we'll look to close the meeting.
Are we not going to put these guys out of misery and let us carry on?
Do you want to expand on that?
Well, I mean, at this stage, clearly, these guys in the south want to get on and draw up their agreement.
They're going to go and do that anyway.
They can do that anyway. We've got an invitation from them, clearly, that we can join, and while we go away and work out what we're doing, and we've got other things to consider. So we've got, so basically, we've got recommendations. Can we just say that we say not to join the Southern group at this stage? And
no, I don't think
leave our options open.
I don't think we even need to do to that, Councillor Booth. Yeah, just bearing in mind, there's only 5 councils that want to work with others. Selwyn, not their governance arm, but their Water CCO have indicated yes, they want to. And then the 3 councils, their governance arms have said, that's it in the South Island, that actually want to work together with us as far as water, So Ashburton, Waimate, Waitaki, Mackenzie, they don't want to work with us. They haven't actually indicated that outside of, maybe shared services. And shared services to them versus to us, a shared service and eradicating 3 drainage and water managers and just having 1 manager across 3 councils, that sort of thing, that's a pie-in-the-sky dream. They're only going to want someone to back them up for when the water treatment plant operator's sick. That's the reality of shared services for those guys, I think. I'm comfortable. We need to move forward. I'll go to you, Councillor Burt, and then we'll...
I was just going to say there may be another agenda for DIA to want us to join those 3 because, as I've always said and put it DIA, they already know the figures on the potential for these people to be successful and everything, and those 3 together actually, DIA know that they're potentially not a great fit just by themselves, and we changed the landscape straight away. So we are in the driver's seat. Yeah.
Well, we're in the driver's seat until we're not. Yeah. I think next year we're probably going to be a backseat driver, potentially, but we'll face that when we get to it. Yeah. A vocal backseat driver, but potentially still a backseat driver. What we'll do from here is I think we'll have a further discussion on all the key things that matter to us for when we're negotiating into the future around what we may or may not want to bring to the table. What we may or may not want within a joint water service entity. But there again, when you're dealing with multiple councils and they've all got to agree with future changes in governance, it won't be as easy as it currently is. But let's park this. I'll now declare the meeting closed. Thanks everyone for your attendance. And councillors, we've got some other stuff after this.